Welcome to Makeshift Clarity, everyone. My name is David, and today I want to talk about 2013's Man of Steel. Oh boy. When the trailers came out for this movie, I was so excited. It was my most anticipated film for that year, and I'll never forget, I think it was trailer number 3.
Goodbye, my son. Hopes and dreams travel with you.
With Hans Zimmer's beautiful piano score over it. It's called This Is Clark Kent. I've listened to it a million times since then. It was playing over the destruction of Krypton, and I was sold. We were shown images and cinematography that kind of lended itself to Christopher Nolan's movies, and I was convinced that we were going to have the Dark Knight equivalent for Superman, and I was obsessed with Superman as a kid. I used to wear a Superman shirt underneath all my clothing, and I would whisper to my mom out in public, "They don't know who I really am." It was very dramatic. And I had a doll, like a favorite doll that I got. I call it a doll because it was legitimately a doll. It was like this tall. There was nothing action figure-y about it. I got it in the 90s at the mall, and I wrote my name on the bottom of Superman's foot, just like Andy from Toy Story. But yeah, I could not be more excited for this film. And a couple days before it came out, a friend of mine texted me, and his sister had been working some promotional campaign with the studio and her job. And he said, "I have tickets to go see an early screening for Man of Steel, and I know you're excited about this film. So if you want to come, you can come." And at the time, I was at my then girlfriend's little sister's graduation, and I just asked her if I could leave. I was like, I need to go. I need to see this movie before anyone else. And graciously, she let me leave. So I saw it. What did I think about it? Well, a lot of it is incredible. I think this movie gets more hate than it deserves. I think it does so much so well, but I have one massive problem with Man of Steel, and it's not the end battle with Zod and all the destruction and maybe the casualties, and it's not the fact that Superman kills Zod at the end of that film. It is the character of Jonathan Kent, and that's what I want to talk about today, specifically his character and, more importantly, how he dies. Let's talk first about what Man of Steel does really well. It took a very gritty, grounded, I know those words are thrown around so much nowadays. It took a very gritty, grounded approach to the character of Superman. And I know that left a lot of people feeling weird because he's known as this very positive, super grounded in the sense, that's funny, that's kind of like a pun, super grounded in the sense of like, this is who he is, he never changes, he's very positive, he's always ready. And this took a different take on Superman, and I enjoyed it because it was all about what is it like to be caught in between two worlds that you don't feel like you really belong in. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And that was important for the character of Superman because let's be honest, Superman, although I enjoyed him as a child, now when I think about the character of Superman, he kind of bores me in the sense of he's perfect. He has so many abilities, he's super overpowered, and it's hard to defeat him unless you have kryptonite. So I liked the idea of a story that was written and structured in a way to make Superman more relatable. So taking that approach of making him more human in the sense of, do I belong? That was a really good question to bring to the character of Superman. Do I belong? And he was stuck in between two families, two worlds. And I think that was great. Also, Lois Lane, I really liked the angle they took with her being a journalist who was pursuing this kind of myth, this godlike human being who kept showing up in circumstances and saving the day and had left behind clues of who he was. And she was trying to figure out who this person might be. I thought that was a really unique angle. It allowed her to use her investigative strengths and also for her to collide with Clark. I think it was rushed a little too quickly. Their interactions, I could have used that coming later on. I want to see more of that. But I do think it was an interesting angle for the character, and I think it was the right choice. Also, treating the question of how would humankind react to an alien living among us with more weight. I think that was a really good choice too. It gave the story more weight, and it made Superman becoming Superman, or Clark transitioning into the role of Superman, more impactful because it makes us feel more deeply for Clark in his decision to step out as Superman. What is that like? What's the weight of that responsibility? But also, in transitioning into what this video is really about, it makes us feel very deeply for his parents, for his adoptive parents in Jonathan and Martha Kent. Because what must it be like to raise someone like that and to hold that secret and to worry because they're your son and you love them and you don't want anything bad to happen to them. To feel that it adds another layer to the film. But it also brings me to some of my criticism of the film, and that's with Jonathan Kent. So when I first saw this movie, I didn't like his character. He felt very anxious. He felt like he was stressful, and I kept wanting him to comfort Clark, and he does in some ways. He offers some really good advice, but he felt so anxious to me. And of course, I'd grown up watching Smallville, where Jonathan Kent is kind of overly positive, I guess, in some ways. I mean, there's some good aspects to that show too. But he was just always there for Clark, always reassuring him, always supporting him. And this was a very different Jonathan Kent, played by Kevin Costner, full of anxiety and worry. And it's obvious, it's on his face, it's in his words when he's talking to his son. He's carrying a lot. But I was watching some clips before making this video, trying to refamiliarize myself with the movie. And a lot of those problems went away from me. I thought, oh, you know what? This is actually more realistic. I don't know why I had a problem with this. It's probably because I was used to and wanting a more ideal, positive father figure for Clark. And it stressed me out watching him be anxious and worried. But it's more realistic. It's much more how that would happen, worrying about your son and wanting what's best for him and not knowing really what's best for him and being aware of the weight and responsibility on the shoulders of his son, who he loves, knowing that down the line in his life, this is going to be something that has to come to the surface. It's going to show itself, and Clark is going to have to decide who he wants to be. And there are a couple really profound moments with Clark and Jonathan, and my favorite is this one.
You just have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark, because whoever that man is, good character or bad, he's going to change the world.
You're just going to have to decide what kind of man you want to be. I can relate to that. Anyone can relate to that. This is amazing writing because it automatically brings Clark down to our level. Even though he's Superman, even though he has superhero abilities, it brings the character of Superman down to our level and we can suddenly relate to him. This scene is incredible. But let's talk about my problem with Man of Steel, and that is how Jonathan Kent dies. One reason this scene bothers me so much is because so much of the film is so good. And I feel like when a movie is really good, when it shows so much potential, you're even harder on it, or at least I am. I'm even harder on the things that bug me or rub me the wrong way or make me think, how did they let this happen? They've done so much so well. Why did they decide to do this? And so let's talk about this scene. This is an example of where I feel like the writers failed to stay consistent with what they were doing with the character of Clark Kent. They're repeatedly trying to make him more human, more relatable. They have an opportunity here to make Clark relatable again, and it's what they're trying to do throughout the film. They're trying to make him more human. They're trying to give him conflict or struggles that are relatable to us as human observers. Having Jonathan Kent die in a tornado was a mistake, because Clark is stronger than a tornado. It is something he can overcome. He can make that choice to disregard what his father thinks is the right choice in this situation and say, no, I'm going to save my father anyways. This is my opportunity to come out and do the right thing. And I just don't think it's consistent with Clark's character. I don't believe that he would allow his father to die because his father wanted him to remain hidden for the time being. I don't buy it. I don't believe that in that moment, with those emotions, knowing that he was going to lose his father forever, that he would stop and not go after his dad. I just don't believe it. This is an opportunity to make Clark relatable again, in the sense of, in life, so much is out of our control. So much is beyond our ability to change things. That's why I think it's so important that Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack, because it's the one thing that Clark has no control over. He can't fix it. He has all these abilities. He's more advanced than humans in so many ways, and yet this is something that's completely out of his control. And it would have been another opportunity. It's already been done before, so I don't understand why they went with the tornado. Jonathan Kent has died in multiple ways over the course of comics and television and film. But this is something that I think is important, and they shouldn't have changed because it was in line with what they were already trying to establish, that he be more human, that they put him in situations that we could relate to. And this was a missed opportunity to stick to something that had been shown before, but would have been just as powerful, because it would have been another chance for Jonathan Kent to teach his son a lesson. And it's a hard lesson and it's a sad lesson, but it would have shown his son that there's things that he can't control. And in that sense, it would have made Clark more human. It would have given him something for the rest of his life to think about, to feel human about. Instead, think about a tornado. He can think back to that moment for the rest of his life and say, why did I listen to my dad? I should have just saved him. I could have. I had the ability to. Now I'm Superman, and what's changed? Like, I just could have come out back then and I should have saved my father. He has to live with regret for the rest of his life. And regret is a human feeling too, but I think it would have been more impactful to show that things are out of his control. It would have forever marked him as a human and allowed him to connect with people and have relationships with people. It would have given him something to bond over. And whether or not that was really explained through dialogue, it would have given the writers opportunities to make him more human, expressing the helplessness that other human beings feel. And I ultimately feel like that would have really solidified Clark's relatability in Man of Steel. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think? What did you think of Man of Steel back in 2013? This movie has grown on me in certain ways that, rubbed me wrong back then. And then I still have this major problem with Jonathan Kent's death. But other than that, I think there's a lot of it. It gets a lot of hate for no reason. And I still really enjoy the film. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. And until next time.